Welcome back, y'all, to another dope edition of Define Your Legacy. All right, before we get tapped into today's episode, just want to shout out the Define Your Legacy online store, all right, which can be found at the link in the description of this episode. All right, we have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and even masks. All right, so feel free to check out the link for Define Legacy's online store. All right, and the link of this episode's description. Now, with that being said, all right, let's dive right into today's episode. We have Evolved Benton on the show. How are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you for the warm welcome. And I can't wait to go on the website and get me some swag too, because it's looking good.
For sure, for sure. Appreciate it. And it's always, cool to have another podcast host on the show. Obviously, we'll talk about that. And but if you could just introduce yourself and tell the world what it is that you do.
Definitely, yo. What's up, world? Thank you so much for listening. My name is Evolved Benton. My pronouns are they or king if you're feeling a little royal. And I am the CEO and owner of Speaking for Profit University, where we teach diverse leaders how to upgrade their income and their impact through public speaking and educational consultation. I'm also an author of the book, Sir. And I am from Los Angeles, California. So I'm a diehard Laker fan. Go Lakers. HBCU alum, went to Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana, and just excited to be here to talk about defining your legacy.
Okay. I like it. So a couple of things off rip. I always think about like the original approach in terms of talking about what you currently do first or your overall journey from the beginning. But one thing that I wanted to acknowledge off rip in that bio is you attending an HBCU. Right. So what made you decide to attend an HBCU?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. You know what? For me, being from LA, I grew up watching, a lot of TV, and I watched Different World, and I got to see, the HBCU value. But what was big for me was I was trying to get out of the inner city. I grew up in South Central LA, and I really wanted to get away from home. There was a lot of gang violence going on at the time. So for me, going to New Orleans was like really just like I could kind of like flip the script, go somewhere new where people don't really know me, and have an opportunity to be around Black excellence. I remember I went to an informational when I was in high school with one of the counselors from Dillard, and they were talking about the poetry and the food, and it just got me really excited and inspired. And honestly, it was one of the first times I really seen like a Black person in power, right? And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool to see someone who's college educated. My parents didn't go to college. My dad did. My mom was a registered nurse, but I didn't really see it around me, right? Like in the academic setting. So I was like, yo, I can get away from home. I could be in New Orleans. And, Lil Wayne was popping at the time. So I was like, I got my dreads going. I can have a good time. So it was just really an inspiration to get away. And I think so many folks do that, right? Like college is that first step to get out of your neighborhood and to really get out into the world.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, a common term and phrase that people use is representation matters. And
right.
So, what did it mean to you to see so many successful people, striving to reach another goal in their life that were all kind of, around your age?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool going to a HBCU. I think it's cool to have your peers, but what was really cool was having faculty members who mirrored you. Like all of our faculty members mostly were Black. The white folks were like the minority, right? And it kind of felt like that auntie uncle vibe all the time. So you really felt like you couldn't disappoint them. You really wanted to show up. I went to school actually during Hurricane Katrina. So I feel like we bonded a lot more because we had to leave campus, right? We had the huge flood that happened in Gentilly in New Orleans. So we had to all evacuate. Most of my peers ended up coming back. So we had a really tight bond just because we went through that trauma together. But seeing all the Black excellence, and even to this day, I always tell people, I feel like my net worth is really my network. I have so many folks that I went to college with who are doing amazing work, whether they're entrepreneurs, physicians, working for Facebook, wherever it may be. So it really was a space where I was really able to really get connected to the world. I mean, we had folks from the South, folks from the West Coast, East Coast, and even international, who were all showing up with their own version of Blackness and their own version of wanting to be great.
Did that surprise you in your early years at college? the idea of
It
seeing people
did. It
from.
was a
Okay.
culture shock, man. Going to the
Yeah.
South is totally different. You know, growing up in LA, you don't really speak to a lot of folks. You kind of stay in your neighborhood. And the South is like they look at you crazy if you don't speak. So when I remember one of my first weeks there, I was talking to a woman and she was like, "You didn't speak. Did you sleep with me last night or something like that?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, ma'am." And she was like, "Yo, when you come in these buildings and these spaces, you need to speak, right? Like you need to be talking to people." So I was a little guarded, and I think that being there really allowed me to get that Black love and that Black support and be embraced in a different way. So it was a culture shock the first couple of years, but then I was like at home, and literally when I came back to LA, I had to like figure it out, like, oh, I'm kind of too open. Let me close back up a little bit. So,
Mhm.
you know, you figure out the environments and how to assimilate.
Yeah. So even you mentioning that, you came home from LA. So what was the step that you took after, school?
Yeah, so I wrapped up school in New Orleans and I ended up coming back to LA mainly because my mom passed away my senior year. So I felt like I needed to be with my dad. I just needed to get home. And I was like, what am I gonna do? It was like the worst time in the economy. It was 2008. So everybody know what happened in '07. There really were no jobs. And I was a communications major. So my first job was actually working for The Price is Right. I was one of those red coats, right? That was behind the stage. I worked at Price is Right, all in CBS. And then I ended up moving on to working at the Dr. Phil show where I was working in post-production and was kind of just doing the Hollywood thing for a while. And what really impacted me was seeing a lot of people in my family navigating depression and sadness because we started having a lot of losses in our family. So I ended up going back to school for psychology really because I wanted to be able to help people and, get my clinical psychology degree. So that was like the first step going into graduate school. And that was really cool. Did that in LA, had a great time, had a great experience, learned about the psyche and the brain and the way things move. And I think my family took it a little bit too serious because everybody started telling me all their stories and all their business. I'm like, I'm not y'all's clinician, but I got some tips for y'all to be able to
Right,
help
right.
y'all a little bit. But I think that's really was the space, to be honest with you, where for me, I really got to understand how intersectional Blackness is, right? Like it's not just, we don't all come from the same place, really, or learned about that in graduate school. Because I think when I was in undergrad, I was just more caught up in partying and having a good time. But this is where I really got to investigate my identity and how it's different from others, but also how it all intersects on the same lane when we talk about being Black in America, even if you come from other places, right? We're going to have a similar intersection and experience. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And talking about, being Black in America, just, the big picture, having attended, an HBCU as well as, the conversation that you had, with your family members, right? Do you feel that, you know, we're on the right path or trajectory? Do you feel like there's an overall shift happening, if you will, in front of our very eyes in terms of success and wealth and just overall opportunities?
I mean, I think there's a shift in access, right? We have so many folks like yourself, like me. So I think we're at a place where people can get access very easily. You can learn how to start an online store. You can learn how to hustle, right? The hustling that a lot of people are doing on the street, you can learn how to do it on the internet or from anywhere, even from your phone, right? You can
Hmm.
make money
Hmm.
literally from your phone. So I think we have a lot of access. I think where the gaps are is really like when we think about the income and the amount that people are still getting paid, which is what I like to talk to a lot of my clients about. Like, why aren't we asking for more, right? As soon as we get the salary, we're just like, oh, I got a good job, I'm gonna take it. But, a lot of other folks and a lot of other cultures automatically go into negotiation as soon as they get a job. They're not thinking like, I'm just going to take that. They already know the company got a little bit more, right? So they
Hmm.
always ask for more. So I think we're still behind when it comes to the income levels. We still spend a lot of money, right, on
Hmm.
things that might
Yeah.
not actually make money. So I think there's still a lot of education to be done, but this is a moment of extreme access, which is why I try to talk to all my homies about like it's too easy to get in. You literally
Yeah.
can get into stocks, you can buy
Yeah.
homes, you can do everything from one device. We've never
Hmm.
had it like this before. So really taking advantage of this time that we're in.
Yeah. I would say like most people are like a 20-minute YouTube video away from like changing their
Right?
entire life. And
Right?
that's not an exaggeration. Like you put in a little bit of discipline and combine that with a little bit of action and like you can really get active in today's world. Like
Man,
it's
YouTube University saved my life. That's literally where I started learning about financial literacy. I literally found a video from the Budgetnista. I remember
mm,
this was like 5 or 6 years ago. I watched it and she was talking about really about saving, like saving
mm,
throughout the year. Cause I wasn't really a saver. I was just like, I'll get money, I spend, I'll save a little bit, but I
yeah,
mean, what's savings for? So it really got me to my emergency savings. And then I was in a Facebook group with her, and that's where I met my first financial advisor. And he really taught me about like my credit, my first investments, getting my 401k, my RA, just the basics, right?
mm,
To understand how to like build wealth. So I'm so thankful that people do put out YouTube videos. I always tell
yeah,
folks, they're like, should I buy this course? Should I buy this thing? I'm like, start on YouTube University and actually see what you're interested in. Because if you're more interested and excited, then you'll actually do the course that you're going to buy. But I see a
yeah,
lot of people
yeah,
just buy courses and then, they don't really do it because they're not really interested.
yeah. And I would say too, following off that, like buying courses to me isn't the only step to take. Like courses are meant, for you to take action. It's the same
Right.
thing like when you go to college, like you're paying for something, yeah, but that doesn't mean that, you're just automatically gonna get a great job. You have to apply the information that you're receiving.
Yeah, I wish
But in
they told me
terms
that
of
in college. I didn't really
yeah,
understand that when we got out of school. I was like, I mean, I got a degree. They're gonna give me a job, right? And they're like,
yeah,
nah, you
now
gotta
what?
build your network and you gotta know people and you gotta
Mhm.
apply, you gotta interview. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Whole
whole process.
process.
Yeah, and do you think I shouldn't ask this question, but I'm going to. Do you think college is somewhat overrated in terms of just knowing
Mm.
what you know now?
I think that I would not do it the way I did it before. That's what I'll say.
Mm,
I won't say it's
mm,
overrated because I think for some people it's a safe haven. It's the only way they're gonna get out, right? And
mm,
it's easy access. But the amount of loans that I ended up acquiring and
yeah.
just the lack of financial literacy I had around that, I do feel a little taken advantage of. Because when I'm thinking
Mm,
about myself then and now, I really didn't know. Like I had
yeah.
no idea that I wouldn't get out and make $80,000 a year and be able to pay that back right away, right? Like the
Mm,
concept of what I'm putting in and what I'm getting out. But for now, I don't think you need it, right? Literally, jobs 4 or 5 years ago, I used to have to apply to, you needed a master's. Now all you need is a bachelor's. I mean, even most of these engineering jobs and technology, you can go to a boot camp. So I do believe that it's becoming obsolete and it's becoming to a point where depending on what path you want to go down, you might not necessarily need it. Where when I was growing up, I'm 35 now, put that out there. When I was
mm,
growing up, it was like everybody said you had to go to college, right? In order to get a job that was going to get you a house and all of this other things. Now I don't think you necessarily need it. So I
mhm,
think you could do it in a more economical way if
mm.
you're going to do it, right? Like you don't have to go out and spend $80,000. You don't have to stay on campus. You don't have to do these traditional things that we did before to get the bag.
Mhm. Very, very true. And, a point that you made too when we talk about our kind of being African Americans versus our counterparts is like, you know, statistically or just on an average basis is when you're offered a certain salary, right? We might just accept it. I think you mentioned like versus
Yeah.
other people who might negotiate. So,
Hmm.
what do you think can be done, either negotiating tactic or just a mindset shift from like, all right, here's my offer, should I accept it or should I ask for more? And if I do ask for more, what's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, you know what? I remember my very first job in higher education. That's currently where I work during my daytime. I always say that's the main girl, and I got a couple of side girls,
Right.
So, but
Right. Right.
my main boo is actually my wife, though. Don't get it
Yeah.
twisted.
No, yeah, I got you. I got
Gotta
you. I got
call
you.
wifey in. I
I
ain't try
got
to,
you.
hear this podcast out here. Had no problems, no
Yeah, have
problems.
your phone ring and yeah. No, I got you.
But yeah, you know what? I think that, I done lost track of the question. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
um, Basically, in terms of salary negotiations and
Okay,
tactics and
yes,
overall. Yep.
yes, yes. Okay. So first job in higher education, I wanted to ask for more.
Mm,
And I asked for more. And my supervisor told me, I don't think they're going to give you more because of something, something, something. That's a red flag, y'all. Right? If you ask your supervisor to advocate for you to get more, and that's a red flag from that job. I had the worst boss there. He was always saying that I didn't have enough and even tried to steal some of my intellectual property. One day I'll
mm,
write a book about him, right?
mm,
So any boss or manager that really wants to hire you, they ain't in charge of that money. That's not their money. So they're going to advocate for you and try to get a little bit more. Now you might ask for 200,000 and maybe they offered you 80,000, and that probably is extreme, but they'll probably be more realistic with you than tell you no. They'll probably be like, you know what, we don't really normally pay anyone that much. I can probably ask for 90. Is that okay? Right. But you're willing to have the conversation. And I think that we need to practice that in the beginning of the relationship, because then when performance reviews come around, or maybe you have to turn in a portfolio, it's easier to have the conversation and your manager, boss, director already expects it because they know where you're coming from. Right. They already know, oh, Evolve's going to ask for more. My supervisor knows it. Like automatically performance review comes around and I'm like, yo, I got my portfolio together. These are things I did in the last couple of years. Can we talk about in advance? So I think it's important to start the conversation earlier and in the first job, because literally your income increases based off of your salary when it comes to employment. So if you start off at 40 or if you start off at 50, that can affect the livelihood of your income and your salary as you move to new positions. So it's important to start off asking for more.
Do you think, do you ever get nervous asking for more money? Do you think people
I
deal
did
with
in the
hesitation?
beginning. I used to get really nervous, really anxious, like, literally not able to sleep the night before those type of conversations. But I think it's just like any muscle, you get more comfortable with it the more that you flex it. Right. And I think that a lot of folks, we need to be more empowered to understand that we have options. Right. I think a lot of us, like, we get caught up in this dream job, dream experience, dream moment concept where it's always another option. The delay is not a denial, right? That's not just one job. It's probably another job right around the corner. So these are sometimes the ways that we can test employers to make sure that they're going to actually value us, right? In the beginning of the relationship, when they being all nice, when they first give you the offer letter, like that's the opportunity to really test the climate to see if it's a space where you can ask for more, not just more money, but more support, more flexibility, right? Whatever more means for you, that's the time to test the waters. But do I get nervous? Yeah, every time, still probably, but it just makes it easier, I think, as you build more confidence.
Right. Do you walk in with any type of leverage though? As anyone, like, do you think that's important as well? Because, the opposite of all this is if, employer just says no, right? Like you ask for a raise and they say no. And then if you really get too dicey and don't know your situation, you can mess around and, I won't say lose your job, but be in a worse situation, because it's like, at the end of the day, if they decide to let you go, then what? So what would you say to someone dealing with no type of leverage at all?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I feel like if you're doing your job, then you should be keeping note of the job you're doing, and that's your leverage, right? Your leverage is what value you're bringing to your company. And when you feel like you're not bringing value anymore, like this is why I often tell my homies when a job get easy, like maybe it's time to start looking for something new, right? Because if you don't want to be wasting your time, you don't want to be wasting their time, right? So yeah, they could say no. The likelihood is a little bit lower, especially if you're a value person at that company, but they could say no. And I think that's the time to really start thinking about that in that relationship. Like, do I need to be there? I've been at a crossroads before in positions where it's like I'm at the top. They're like, we can't give you anymore. And for me, especially as a person who's trying to retire early, to me, that means that's a time for an exit. And exits don't always have to be negative. I think that's a concept that comes up to mind for a lot of folks when they have to transition anywhere. We're in a time where we're not like our grandparents and our parents where they stay at jobs for 20, 30 years. Like we literally have to move on usually to continue to build wealth. So I think like if you go and have a transparent conversation and they can't do it, it's a no, then that's an opportunity for you to look at your skill set and see if you can apply for another job or move on in the departments to maybe another, position that allows you to allocate some of those funds.
Right. And it's all, too, about leveling up, this
Mm-hmm.
idea. Life is long.
Exactly.
I know people say, life is short, but like, it's all, a journey, it really is
It
a marathon.
is. It
Um,
is. And you need to be compensated, people who listen to this and watching this. We just need to be. We can't
yeah,
continue to be underpaid. That's not a good for you. That's not good for morale. And it's definitely not going to be good for the way you show up for the job.
yeah, yeah. Cause I mean, people have the opinion of whether or not money is taboo in our community, but I mean, at the end of the day, numbers are numbers. right? And so, you know,
Yeah, money is taboo unless it's like in the strip club or the movie
right.
videos. Then everybody want all of the money,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Then the conversation is real, and then you see it, and then oh man, everyone, I had no idea we was all okay, cool. Um, but even in that though, right? When we talk about community, one thing that I found to be very very dope is that you have obviously a platform and podcast of your own. So talk to me too about that.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I got two podcasts,
Yeah,
right? So my first
podcast
podcast
game.
that I started was Boy Meets Wellness, and I started this as a passion project. When I say the word boy, BOI, that means born obviously incredible. So I started interviewing incredible people around the world around entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and wellness, because I feel like it has to be a cohesion, right? You got to take care of
Mm-hmm.
your body, you got to take care of your money, and you got to take care of the business, right? You got to handle
Mm-hmm.
it all. So that was my first baby and it went really well. We had like 3 seasons. We're on a pause right now, but we're actually going to be revamping in the next few months. Probably will bring you on there because I think that would be a great segment. But
Sure.
I think with any brand, right? Like if you're creating a coaching program, a course, you got to have a way to build an audience, right? So within Speaking for Profit, we created a podcast because I was doing so many lives and so many interviews. And I was like, yo, this needs to go to a broader audience of folks who can hear it and can really share the experience of learning how to get paid to speak, but also learning from some of the top experts that I'm able to have conversations with. So I love that space because literally we bring in clients, I bring in folks that come in as experts, I bring in myself with my random talks and thoughts
Mhm.
about contracts and things that I'm doing within the speaking business. And we really give them like I would say a bird's eye view on what it means to be a speaker and what it truly means to speak for profit. So
Mm.
it's been a great experience. I love podcasting because it's literally so easy. Like you and
Mhm.
I are here to have conversations and literally it's taken me across the globe. I mean, I've
Mm.
spoken to people in Japan, Australia, everywhere, and I've
Mm.
never been there, but just to have the touch point, it's just an amazing opportunity.
Mm. And how do you get started speaking?
How did I get started? You know what? This
Yeah,
is
how do you get started?
you taking me all the way back. So as
Yeah,
a kid,
yeah.
and I still have it now, I had a lisp, right?
Mm.
So for me, I remember I had a speech therapist. This was in elementary school, and that was probably the first time where I had to practice speaking, right? Because it's a different kind. You're practicing different languages, different scripts, different words to kind of get the lisp away, right? Like they want to
Mhm.
decolonize or colonize your tongue, the best
Mhm.
way I can describe it.
Mhm.
We're not going to get too political. But for me, I started off as a poet and as freestyling in like middle school and high school. And we had like slam poetry. So I would do those at like talent shows. And I actually got to undergrad. And that's when I understood that not only could I speak, but I also could probably do some trainings, right? Or maybe do some education. And being a Black queer person, at a Methodist college, right, there wasn't a lot of representation. So I found myself fighting for rights for LGBT people there, especially myself. I was one of the first people to wear a tux at coordination and I was fly as ever. But before then, they wouldn't even let men, I mean, they wouldn't even let women, quote unquote, women
Mhm.
wear men's clothing at those type of events, right? So doing a
Wow.
lot of pushback there. And I would say the launching of speaking business happened when I moved to the Bay Area about 6 years ago. I got here and I got a job and it was hella expensive. And I was new to my relationship with my current beautiful wife. And literally I went to go buy us a bacon sandwich and we had to split it in half because my paycheck was way too low after paying rent. So I was like, I need a side gig. What am I going to do? Let me try to use this voice. I started reaching out to people, seeing if I could speak at different places, and literally a Black woman in technology, she gave me the tip. I was going in to do a panel for Pride Month and she was like, yo, come through, I want you to speak. And I charged her $500. And she was like, you need to charge at least $3,000. And I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yes. So I submitted my invoice and that was the first time I got like a high paid speaking opportunity. So shouts out to that Black woman. She knows who she is. She always tells me don't say her name. And I appreciate that as well. But shouts out to Black folks, right, who put you on game on like, because you really don't know often when you're going to new industries how much you can get paid or how much you can like get paid for your impact. So I've been doing it ever since.
And how long ago was this?
This
This
was
is your
about
first
5 years ago. Yeah,
5 years
yeah,
ago. Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Before then, I was doing like training and development, but like for gift cards, right? I didn't really
Mm.
understand that it was a skill set where I could actually charge a large amount of money. So I would go and do like, come and do an LGBT training at this event, or come and speak here, come and do a poem here. And I would just get whatever they gave me. I never thought in my head, oh, I should be charging these people.
Hmm. So how did you find these people? How do you find, these events? Like, did people reach out to you, or did you, have to go to them?
Yeah, this is a great question. So how do we find our leads, right? This is what we call our lead management within Speaking for Profit. First, we start within our personal network. Like I told you, going to a historically Black college, also working in, different networks. I know people, right? So the first
Mm.
people I started with were literally people boots on the ground that worked at other universities, maybe people that I went to school with in the past and now work at places I want to speak. And I was like, hey, I got these offerings. Can I come in? Right. So I was doing that and cold emailing for a while. And then I was like, yo, this is cool, but it's not really working. So now my powerhouse is actually LinkedIn. I reach out to a lot of people and build relationships on that platform. And it's been super powerful in the way that you can connect with people. And even if, what I often tell people, because they're like, oh, I meet people, but they don't want to pay me, or they're not the person to pay me. And I'm like, you're building a relationship with them and they're at that company. So once you build that relationship, you can tap into the person who's actually meant to be there to bring in speakers, but you need to nurture it as well, right?
Mm.
So LinkedIn has been a great place for what I would call cold traffic, but most of my like warm, hot leads, people that I really know, are from referral or
Mm.
personal relationships that I've been able to build.
Mm. Do you have a preference on the audience that you speak to?
Yeah, you know what? This is a good question because I'm shifting a lot. As you get older, you want to impact different people in different parts of the world. So I think for me, I'm really wanting to speak to younger, not younger like high school, but younger college graduate students who are African American, Black, who are really trying to figure out what they're going to do next, to inspire them to put the profit first. I think I put a little bit of the dreams first in my life. And I feel like if you can obtain the financial literacy and also obtain the money that you need for your freedom, you can always do the passion projects. So
Mm.
I really
Mm.
want to push young folks to look at that young time. Like I looked at my 20s as like, I could just do whatever. Like actually no, like if you take that a little bit more serious, then you could really do whatever in your 30s and you can be chilling, right? So really
Mm.
take advantage of that. And I definitely want to speak to folks who are navigating any type of depression, especially around losing a parent. Because I lost my mom when I was like 21. And now that
Mm.
I'm in my 30s, I'm starting to see all my peers, right, starting to lose their parents. So really supporting us with some of that like grief and depression to uplift us and to inspire us to keep living and keep moving on our journeys. Because we will lose our elders, right? But there's a way that they become ancestors that we can really hold space with them still. And I really just want to support folks with not becoming to a demise to depression, because I've seen so many folks unfortunately experience that.
Yeah. And even in saying that, how do you feel that your story can possibly resonate with people that you end up speaking to and with? Um,
Yeah, you know what? Being a speaker is so interesting because the things that you think you're saying that are going to really hit people, you get all juiced up, you're practicing your speech, you're having your moment, and then they'll come to you and you planted a seed based off an
mhm.
analogy that you used, right?
Mm.
So I think the representation of who I am as a person is very important. And I'm a storyteller, right? Which
Mm.
folks can probably hear here on the podcast. So I'm always telling my stories. But when it comes to the impact that can have with folks who are navigating depression, I'm navigating it myself mostly, right? Like, and I'm constantly empowering and uplifting myself. And as a person who lost their mother at a young age, their best friend, I can give a lot of tools on how do you keep the relationship going with your ancestor, but also how do you keep the relationship going with yourself? Because really the inner work is really what brings the joy. I think that so many of us look for external things, whether that's cars or video games or sports, which I still like sports. Go Lakers, anyone listening to this. But that's not the things that's going to make you happy. You got to be happy with yourself. And a lot of it is about having conversations with some of those internal demons, right? When you look in the mirror, more than worrying about other people, including social media, right? If I could
Mm.
give a tip to anyone who's navigating sadness, depression, or just, down in the dumps, turn the damn phone off and go outside. Go outside, get some sun, take a nature walk, right? Write down about 5 things you're grateful for under a tree and leave that toxic thing at the house. Because a lot of us get caught up in watching other people, right? And that's really what brings us down.
Mm. Yeah, that's real. I think social media can be of great use, but also harm. A lot
Yeah.
of what is it, imposter syndrome? Just the idea of like, run your own race and not really looking, to your left, to your right. And it's hard, right? With the same
Yeah.
device that can help you make money can also damage your mental health.
You got to have balance with it. You got to have balance. Don't sleep with it. That's one thing I'm working on. Is like, it's not the first thing. First thing is
yeah.
me. Let me get up, get some water, get some movement, get some stretching, right? Pray, do my thing. And then the phone will always be there. It'll always be there, literally. And even if it goes out, I can go get a new one. Literally, it'll give me a new one right now. Right?
Yeah,
if I just put it in water and go take it back, it's insured. Here, we'll give you another one, right? So it will always be there, but you won't, right? So take care of you and value you.
Yeah, that's cool and dope that you're saying take care of you. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs feel a lot of pressure, right? Like, all right, I got to make more money today. I know, I'm straight financially, but I got to get to it. I got to get to it. Like it's a 24/7 thing. Some people have that battery in their back, if you will, and it's hard to turn that off. So what would you say to someone who's constantly feeling the need and pressure to, keep going and just bam, 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 it just doesn't know how to stop?
Yeah, you'll stop. That wall will get you. That burnout wall will catch up to you. So you'll stop. All of us are human. So eventually it'll stop you. But what I want to say is chasing money don't make money. And I know you know this, right? You know this. Chasing money has never made me money. When I sit back and I relax, I put in my systems, I do my work, it comes to me. But if I sit up there and I try to force it and just post, do, it never even comes, right? So we don't just want wealth. We want wealth with ease. That's what I always say. When I'm doing my mantras, I'm not just asking for money. I want money with ease. My ancestors have worked hard enough. Everyone has worked hard enough. I deserve to do this in the easiest and most less complex way as possible. So simplicity and ease also with your abundance, right? And that's the things that we want to use with our tongue. I truly do believe that we have the power to spell ourselves, right? Like we're speaking for prophecy. Whatever we speak in our lives are going to come. So just because you chasing doesn't mean it's going to come any quicker. We really need to put in more systems, more automation, delegate a little bit more, right? And be okay with maybe taking a little bit less profit, but it coming with ease. And I think that if you are able to do that, you can calm down a little bit. But for some people, when they first get started, for me, this is like speaking for profit would probably be considered my third business. I had a fraternity, LGBT fraternity back in the day that I was running. I've been doing like swag and t-shirts and everything forever. I've always been a poet, so I've always had books, right? So I've been on the grind and that money never felt good. And this never did. I always was like sick, had a cold, right? My body wasn't even showing up well. So I'm just letting y'all know if y'all chase it, it's not going to come to you. Guaranteed. Not in the same, not with ease. Not with ease.
What's been the biggest difference you think between those moments and where you're at now?
The biggest moment is just maturity. You just get older and then you just kind of know what you can do, literally burning out. Literally, my wife telling me like, nope, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that and be with me, right? So I think as you get older, you get more maturity, you have more responsibility, you have an understanding that it's not just about work, right? And literally your community, right? My community has sat me down and said, Evolve, we want to spend more time with you when you're not just working, you're not just on your phone. Remember, I was hanging out with my dad in LA one summer and he was like, damn, that phone, the phone again. Like he was coming in. We kind of got into it a little bigger, man. And then I went into meditation the next morning and I was like, he's just asking to have more of my attention. He's not really saying he don't like my phone. He's not understanding that this is not my hustle. Cause that was in my head, right? Like, he understand I'm grinding, I'm out here. It's like, no, he wants to spend more time with you. He wants you to be present. And when we're doing that, we're not present for the people we love. And if we grinding, aren't we grinding for the people we love? So it's kind of like we're not really doing our due diligence.
Yeah. And that's extremely important that you say that, because I think, you work hard for those people that you're kind of ignoring in that, situation? Not that you were ignoring, but just the idea of like,
I was ignoring them. You could say it.
Oh, well, anyways, yeah, I don't, I'm not gonna.
And I
was
love
gonna
you,
say,
Dad. I love you, Dad, because my dad
yeah.
always finds a way to listen to all the things that I make. But
Of
yes, Dad, I love you. But I was ignoring him, right?
course.
And that's because I was definitely on the grind. I was in a different part of my life. I think the other thing, the difference now is that I have been able to build a little bit more financial literacy and financial comfort. So I
Mm,
always tell entrepreneurs, just like our life, we need to build stability in our business. So I have an emergency fund for my business. I have an emergency fund for my personal life, right? I try to invest in things that make money in my business while I'm asleep, and the same thing in my personal life, right? So making sure that we're building the same systems that build a foundation that allow us to do things with ease. And in
mm.
the beginning, it's not always like that. Sometimes you do got to just, boots to the ground, grind it out, and get it to the point where it's stable. But I see so many entrepreneurs get a little cash flow and then they just go spend it, right?
Mm.
You got to add something to the business so that you don't have to be stressed out and you're not always chasing the next client, the next customer, the next bag.
Is that challenging to do though? Like because as if you're struggling, because I mean, even your story, I think was it a bacon sandwich?
Yep. Yep. It was
Okay, yeah,
bacon sandwich. I eat the
it was a
pork,
bacon
y'all. I'm
sandwich.
sorry. For
See,
people who don't
I,
eat the pork.
I remember, right? It was a bacon sandwich. But so from a person who, again, just based off your truth, coming from a situation like that, and now having a business that's very very successful, is that challenging to do? Right, delayed gratification. Again, I think even more detail in the fact that like not everything was working in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, all right, I got a average job and making decent salary, and then I get some real money, then I'm a splurge. You sound
Yeah.
like you come from humble beginnings. So
Yeah.
is it challenging to even just wait a little while
Oh, hell
before
yeah. It's
you?
challenging.
Okay.
It's really challenging. And I think you learn, right? You fumble and you learn. So I remember when I wanted to buy my wife her engagement ring. Right. This was my first test with money in my head. Like, oh shit, I gotta move money to do money. So I stopped buying sneakers, and I love sneakers. All
Mm,
my homies know this. Let's listen to this, watching this. I love shoes, like $200 shoes. So I stopped doing that and put that money towards the engagement ring, right? So I could
mm,
start saving, right? But then when I bought it back in, I created a money rule. So this is what I do for myself. If I want to buy a pair of Nikes, buy a pair, got to buy a share. That's the rule.
mm,
So it ends up being like, if I'm going to buy this liability, I'm automatically going to buy an asset. And that's what I try to
mm,
do with anything. So I want a new laptop, right? I'm calling that in for this year, right? Because I got my work laptop. That's what I work off of. But I'm like, I need my own laptop. I need my
mm,
own things, right? That means that if I'm going to spend $2,000, I need to spend $2,000 on shares of Apple as well, right? So, and I've been able to create these money rules in my head. One, yes, to make more wealth, but also to deal with my trigger around consumerism, right? Because I told you I grew up in LA. Everybody trying to look fly. You go to the
mm.
mailbox, everybody trying to look fly, right? It's just kind of like where we at. Everybody, what you got? You got the new this, you got the new that. So growing up in consumerism and that being passed down in my family, this is the way I'm trying to heal some of that. So is it easy? No. But what in life is really easy,
Mm.
right? So I think that started from humble beginnings, definitely had like some forks in the road. But for me, it's all about discipline and all about giving yourself more time, right?
Mm.
More time with it, learning a little bit more and more at a time. And when you make a mistake, not shaming yourself, right? Understanding that you live to see another day and you'll be able to do better, right? A lot of
Yeah,
entrepreneurs get caught up in like, I messed up, it's all over. And it's like, it's not all over. You just didn't make money today, right? Go
right.
make money tomorrow, right? And it'll be okay.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of notes I want to highlight from the story that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
One is that as a consumer and investor, you can always do both.
Yep.
Right. I know a lot of people will sit and tell you like, don't buy Nikes or don't buy anything that you enjoy. I promise you, you can do both. Right. Like there's
Yes.
no law that says now. To me, one of those things is a little bit more important than the other. But the idea of like you don't have to cut off one part of your life just to, you know, enjoy life. But
Mm.
also too, remaining disciplined. Right.
Yep.
Telling yourself, you know what, I like these Nikes. You know what I'm saying? I rock one, but at the same time, I have to make sure that I hold myself accountable because if you don't, who will?
Who's gonna do the
Right.
work?
Exactly. And also too to everyone out there, and you brought up a very, very dangerous topic, I'll say. and that is, sacrificing buying sneakers and saving for an engagement ring. So,
Mhm.
what was your thought process behind that? Because as we know, that is a very common mindset
Mhm.
for a lot of people. It's like, all right, should I really, save for, shorty's ring, or should I really get active for myself? So, what was your? I'm just saying, that's like a legitimate, thought process that people have in life.
Mhm.
So, what was your thought process behind all that?
I mean,
Outside of
I think,
obviously, of course, love.
yeah, love,
Right.
and I also knew that they weren't serving me. Like, you see the boxes just piling up. I mean, it's cool, but it never is going to be that, right? And I think for me, I think in the back of my head now, this is forward, right? This is present
Mhm.
day. I think I knew that this would reshape my consumerism, right? Like I knew,
Mhm.
like, if you can let go of this, it's almost like when you're going on a diet and you got that one last thing that's your favorite, right? Like you like, you know what, if I can get these M&Ms out of my face, then I know
Mhm.
I'm gonna be good, because everything else
Facts.
is kind of easy for me, right? Like everything else is like, I'm not attracted to that, I don't need to buy that. So I'm like, if I could actually get this together and get this discipline, then I probably could do anything, right? So
Mhm.
I knew that it would be challenging, and for me, that's a part of love as well. Like I love a good challenge. So I
Mhm.
really wanted to be able to do that. And I also knew if I didn't do it, the money wasn't going to come from my daddy. It wasn't going to come from nobody else. Like if I wanted to be able to propose and have this ring and the ring that she wanted, I needed to save some money. And I was making extra money, but I also knew that I didn't need to be spending the sneaker money and the ring money. Right.
Yeah.
I also told myself that once I bought her the ring, I was going to go back to buying sneakers. Of
Hey,
course.
you
And of
know how you
course,
live, priorities. Wait,
and of
did you or
course
did
it
you didn't?
didn't. It didn't
Oh,
happen
oh.
though. Right. Because I got so used to it not. And I was taking that money to buy the ring. And then remember, it was like, I think I was taking $300. So I would do $200 there and then $100 in stocks. So once I got the ring, I was able to see like, oh, like, dang, I got saved all this money and this money made money. So I think in my head, it was a switch where I was like, dang, I could buy these new J's, but I also could buy the stock. So that's why I came up
Yeah.
with the buy a pair, buy a share, because then I don't feel bad.
Right. No, I like that. I like that. Buy a pair, buy a share. But I would say too, though, to your laptop example, I think, to me, in my opinion, the slight difference between those is that laptop is more of an investment
It
opportunity.
is. Yep.
And so I think one thing that I also want to hit home as well is like it's okay to spend money on yourself
Yep.
when it's an investment, right? Like they always
Hmm.
say, the best investment you can make is in yourself, but that really is true. Like
Yep.
stock market could tank tomorrow. I hope it doesn't.
Yep.
Real
It
estate
better
market
not.
could crash, right? You will have a serious problem if it does. But just the idea
Yeah.
that
But
like,
we get to
like
go on sale. It go on sale. So we
right,
get to ball
yeah,
out.
yeah, of course. There's always two sides to look at it, but like the idea is there's certain things in life that you can't control, no matter what
Yeah.
any guru tells you. Like nobody knows what's
Hmm.
gonna happen tomorrow, but what you pour into yourself, money wise, education wise, all that stays with you. So
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that part. Like I said, I think it's a pretty cool part of your story. But speaking
Yeah.
of story, do you feel that everyone has a story?
Everyone has a story. If you're born and you're a human, you got a story. Now, if you're a clone, which I know some of y'all are out there, I've been watching the movies. I don't know if you got a story. You probably got somebody else's story, right? You got a story, but everyone has a story because everyone has a life. Everyone has a journey. Everyone has something that they can share that probably can impact the world. They just need to share it with clarity, right?
Mm,
And I find that sometimes our stories are filled with other people's expectations, other people's stories of us. So a lot of the work that we do with folks at Speaking for Profit really is about not only getting clarity with the story you're going to share with the world, but the story that you're sharing with yourself. And a lot of
mm,
that's about value, right? That comes down to how much you can charge or who you can go speak to because you don't feel
mm,
like you're qualified, or maybe you feel like you're overqualified, whatever that may be happening.
mm. Yeah, and you mentioned, obviously, you're speaking for profit community. So could you talk to us too about the people that you've helped either get started in the public speaking business, or just the idea of a mindset shift that you may have been a part of in terms of people who have really got going with that.
Yeah. So we started Speaking for Profit university actually during the pandemic, right? So
Mm.
I come from a family of, my mom was a registered nurse. I mentioned that. My grandmother was a caretaker. I have physicians in my family as well. Everybody used to always tell me you're gonna work in a hospital, which is so funny to
Mm.
me because I hate blood, right? Y'all, I
Mm.
cannot do it. Y'all take me to the movies. I'm the one over here like, ooh, my partner literally be watching stuff about people like murder. She's obsessed with it. And I'm like, how did we get together? Because
Yeah.
I cannot do any of this, right? It is not for me. So we started during the pandemic, and I really started with my friends, with my homies. I was like, yo, I'm getting paid on Zoom. You need to be getting paid on Zoom too, right? Get this money, get out here and speak.
Virtual.
Eh, Virtual. Yeah. I
Okay.
haven't
Yeah.
spoken in person since 2019. My whole
Mm.
business went virtual.
Damn.
Right, exactly,
Okay.
right. So I'm
Yeah.
literally here from you. Where I'm here with you right here is where I make my money. So I got the homies. I was like, yo, let's do this. And one of my friends was like, you should do a course. And then I was like, I don't know how to do a course. So I started looking it up, started trying to figure it out, YouTube University. And then finally I was like, I'm gonna actually do a coaching program. And the reason I decided on a coaching program was because I did courses that I didn't finish. And I really wanted to make sure that people actually got value and actually
Mm.
got paid, right? So some of the top results that we've been able to see from our students, and most of our students, I would say, social workers, therapists, healers, a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion experts, a lot of influencers and folks. Folks have been able to land speaking engagements usually within 2 months of working with us, and that's anywhere between $3,000 to our top paid client who just got an $80,000 speaking
Mm.
engagement for 12 weeks, which is really dope. So she's getting paid a
Yeah. Yeah.
salary, usually a
Yeah.
salary in 12 weeks.
Mm.
And financially, that's great, right? Those are financial wins, but the wins that really like make me feel good as a coach are people being able to leave jobs that really weren't
Mm.
serving them, people being able to buy property, and people
Mm.
really being able to invest in their children. Which is some of
Mm.
the cool stuff that I've been able to see some of my clients do. So
Mm.
shouts out to all the students at Speaking for Profit University. Thank you so much for continuing to support us, because all of our enrollment fees literally go back into the program. So at least 3 to 5% of each enrollment fee, we're going to be putting into a scholarship fund so that we can start
Mm.
welcoming people who might not have the financial capacity to pay for our university.
Yes, that is defining your legacy right there. That is defining your legacy. Definitely
Yes.
appreciate that. And just the idea of, education being passed on.
Mhm.
But so I can only imagine, right? The very first check you got from your speaking engagement, I'm sure it felt great, regardless of the number, right? The fact anything higher than zero is money.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to you now to know that you're helping people to do the same?
Mm. It's way more powerful now, right? Like, I mean, I love still going to speak, but it just means so much that I'm changing people's lives, but also that they're able to see themselves in just such a bigger light on how they can impact the world. It's way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Literally, like I started with the homies and I was like, yo, I'm just
Hmm.
going to do this thing. And now that we've really been able to, like, I've been able to meet people that I didn't know. Right. Does that make sense? Like they're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in my
yeah.
network. I have a client I'm working with right now in Ontario, Canada, and she is like really passionate about building Black wealth and having conversation with affluent Black families and how to
Yeah,
filter that down. I'm actually going to send her to you because she would be a great person on this podcast.
for
But
sure.
just being able to be connected, I love being the connector, to be able to be like, yo, you be great for this and you should meet this person, and seeing people just grow and build wealth, but also be able to change their families' lives. Like, it's just so powerful, man. Like,
Mm.
when I secure a bag, I'm happy, but when my clients secure a bag, I'm just like, yo, like, because you could see the change, right? You could instantly see the change. I had a client, she was a clinical psychologist, and she was charging $400 to go and speak in these places. And I was like, girl, you got to go up in price.
Mm.
Now she charged $4,000, and she'd be mad at me
Mm.
like, Bob, they want to pay me 2,000, right? Like, she's so sassy
Mm.
about it.
Right.
But just to see her mindset shift, and for her to know that she has that much value, like I told her,
Mm.
she can be a powerhouse anywhere now, whether she has to go back to be an employee or not. That concept of knowing her worth is going to take her so far.
Growth right there. And shout out to her.
Growth.
And this idea of, your price after a while. Like sometimes, it might take time, but
Yeah.
get to it.
Yep.
And
Yep. Know your price.
yeah, that is extremely major. So you mentioned the idea of, people leaving their jobs and things like that. But so would you say that this is something that, people can do in addition to having a 9 to 5?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like I tell folks all the time, I still have my 9 to 5, right? And people like, when you gonna let her go? When y'all gonna break up? I'm like, I'm keeping her around because I'm trying to be financially free. So I'm all about multiple streams of income in my life. For some people, that's not their thing. They just kind of want to just do speaking, and that's
Yeah.
totally cool as well. And that's what I love about it. You can kind of decide how you want to do it. So for me, right now, it's like 1 to 2 speaking engagements a month. I have my 9 to 5, and then I'm doing some coaching, and I'm also an artist, right? So I want to get back out and start writing some poems. I'm looking over here because I got a keyboard that my
Mm.
wife bought me. I want to learn the piano. I want to learn to play
Yeah.
trap music and Christmas music. That's it, y'all. Don't hit me
That's
up
a
with no.
wild combination, but I'm not mad at it.
I got this
That's
idea of like playing Christmas music for my kids when I have them, right? Like, and be able to be around and playing that. And then I just love trap music. So
all right.
it's one of the things I
Some
want to be
Mariah
able to
Carey
do.
vibes.
But
Yeah,
I don't want
okay.
everything I do to be connected to capitalism and making money, right? Like I think I'm really passionate about building the sides of things that can make money and be wealth and do that thing, and having the most time in the world to be able to have a good time, hang with my homies, create art, and do the things that I want to do. So, that's
Yeah,
where I'm at.
for sure. I hear that. I hear that. And what would you say to kind of, to someone who might hear this and think, man, maybe public speaking is something that I'm interested in, and whether it be virtually, let me just leave it at virtual because I know we're still in COVID time, but it's
Mhm.
virtually. What would you say to someone like that? Like, what is, the thing that you would encourage?
Mm. I think the thing that I would encourage is to figure out what you want to speak about that's going to impact the world, and also figure out what problem you're solving. I speak to so many folks who want to speak, but they don't think it's a business, right? Like they really
Mm.
think like I could just speak about what I'm passionate about. And the passion is important, but you're a problem solver, right? And you want to continue to add value. So I think really sitting with that. And the best way to get started, if y'all want to get started, right, is to start speaking. So go live, share some information with your friends, speak in front of people that you're actually comfortable in front of, and see how that sits in your body. Because a lot of the work that we do with folks in our beginners program is like moving past that fear, the fear of actually hearing your voice out into the world. So do some speaking, right? And we
Mm.
got an easy thing because we got this phone. We got so many things that we can connect with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the powerful, stuff that social media can provide is crazy. But one of the last questions that I want to ask you, you talk about providing value, and obviously, you have, your own community that you've kind of, you definitely made waves with, which is definitely something I respect, right? But the last question I have for you, and it's a question that I ask everyone that's come on to Find Legacy is, how
Mhm.
do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a person who served their community, loved their family, made some money, put on some
Mm.
jamming parties, and cooked the best lasagna you ever had in your life.
Okay, not mad at it. And that in that order.
In that
In
order,
that,
yeah, man. You
got
know
you,
what? I was thinking about that
got you.
recently because my mom passed this lasagna recipe
Mm.
down to me, and I make it for my partner. And I was like, man, I think I got something here. I think I'm
Mm.
leaving this here on the planet and people gonna really dig it. But yeah,
Mm.
I just want to be left here, like people remembering me serving the world, with my voice, right? With my
Mm.
impact. And that's what I love about podcasting, right? We have the ability to be here even when we're not here. And this is a part of our legacy.
Facts. Very, very true.
Thanks.
And so, if you could, just drop your social slash, where can people find you? Drop the website, drop the Facebook group, drop the Instagram, drop the course info.
Yes,
Get active with all
definitely.
the promo that you would love.
Definitely, yeah, folks. Hit me up at Evolve Benton everywhere. That's EVOLVE, as in the word evolve or evolution. Benton, BENTON. And if you want to text me, you can actually text me. The number is 323-405-9492. Text me the word speak, and I'm going to send you over a free training that you could check out. If you're interested in public speaking to get started, just text the word speak to 323-405-9492.
Got you, got you, got you. I don't know if you mentioned your coaching program, or just
Yeah,
that's the
yeah. If
best
you
way to
text the
contact
word
and all that.
speak, you'll get that
Okay, yes,
information.
sir.
But
Okay,
you can also check us out at speakingforprofit.com. And that's the
got you,
number 4. So you want to do speaking, the number 4, profit.com.
got you, got you, got you. Appreciate that. And are there any final words that you want to leave the audience with today?
I think the final words that I want to leave the audience with is a delay is not a denial, and your wealth is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always ask that question, but like usually it hits me more than it just that's some serious stuff.
Hmm.
So it's
I'm
yeah,
sending that to you particularly. If
yeah.
it's
I
a
say
delay, you think that it's
yeah.
there, it's not there.
Facts. But yeah, on the Defiant Legacy front, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TikTok, everywhere. All right. And again, check out the link in the episode's description for the online store and everything like that. Aval, thank you again for being on the show. All
Thank
right. And
you.
just like that, y'all, we gone. Peace.